A lonely bamboo cutter, tired from a long day of work, makes his way home as the night begins to close in. Off in the distance, however, he notices a stalk glowing with a pale radiance, its feathery top swaying to and fro. Overly curious and awed, he approaches the stalk carefully and cuts into it. Inside, he finds a small child, no larger than the palm of his hands, a girl that glows faintly with moonlight. He hurries home to his elderly wife and shows her the fairy he retrieved from the plant, and having no children of their own, the two agree that they will raise the girl. They give her the name Kaguya. As Kaguya grew, she became more and more beautiful, garnering the eyes of all who happened to pass by the old bamboo cutter's home. Townspeople and even nobles began to take notice of Kaguya's beauty, as she moved around the house, doing what she could with grace and decorum. This grace and decorum was often spectated from afar, except for among the nobles. You see, 5 princes had fallen for Kaguya. They could no longer resist not being without her, and so they sent letters to her father, the bamboo cutter, to ask for her hand in marriage. By coincidence, the 5 letters arrived simultaneously, and the father, unwilling to upset nobles, left the decision to Kaguya. Kaguya, cunning as she was, told her father to have them all gather before her, so she could make a more educated choice. As such, the bamboo cutter did, returning letters to all 5 that Kaguya would like to see them. What Kaguya did not tell her father was that she had no intention of marrying. She liked living with the bamboo cutter and his wife, and had no interest in any of the princes. A day came when all 5 princes came to the bamboo cutter's home, and to their astonishment, all of them saw one another, a group of potential suitors. They were, to say the least, surprised, but seeing their competition was actually the least of their worries. You see, Princess Kaguya had a grand idea, one that would make sure she'd be left alone. She'd send all 5 of them on impossible tasks. First was to go and retrieve the Buddha's great stone bowl. The second was to pull a branch from the jeweled tree on the floating island of Horai. The third, to find the cloak made of burning fur of the fire rats. The fourth, to garner a gem from a sea dragon's neck. The fifth, to retrieve a shell that is hidden in a swallow's nest. Because of the trials of these tasks, the prince could not replicate the results. The first prince did not like the time it would take to attempt to find this bowl, and instead wrapped a temple bowl in fine silk, waiting 3 years to send it to Kaguya, in hopes of replicating the journey it would take to find. Needless to say, Kaguya was unimpressed with this lying. The next prince had his jeweled branch made, and waited several years to return. He gave it to Kaguya, and as she examined it, the craftsman he had hired to make the branch came asking for recompense. Thusly, this prince too was no good for her. The third prince actually found the cloak, and prepared it as she asked, lighting it ablaze to make it glow brightly. However, he was too slow, and it was swallowed by the flames, reduced to smoke and ash. Heartbroken, he sent word to Kaguya, and when she attempted to reach out to him, she learned that he was already gone, fading out from his kingdom and disappearing from the annals of history. The fourth prince grew valiant in his expedition until a storm whipped up in the seas, and he grew frightened of the storm and the ocean itself. Then and there, in his terror, he called off his hunt for anything Kaguya asked, and settled upon the first land he could find, building a lofty castle there, and never leaving, not even for 100 princesses. The fifth prince, depending on the telling, harassed the swallows and found himself pecked and prodded by them for his gestures of thievery. In some tellings he fell to his death and died, and in others, more friendly for children, he merely nursed his wounds and called off marrying. Now, with the princes out of the way, Kaguya was free to live as she pleased. She lived the life of a caring daughter for several years, caring for her mother and father, until the day her elderly mother died. Sometime later that summer, she turned 20, and when she was at her most radiant and beautiful, she and her father spoke. Kaguya was disappointed. She knew she was not of this world, but of the moon, and soon enough she would have to return there. Her father, the bamboo cutter, kindly proclaimed that that would not be the case, that he would have the emperor do all he could do to keep her on earth where she belonged. The emperor, hearing her plight and noting her beauty, sent his armies to assure her safety. Day in and day out, awaiting the night of the next full moon when she would be taken away, the guards rested. And as the day drew closer and closer. Kaguya grew sadder and more distant, losing herself to grief upon her balcony as the guards would watch and wait below. Then, on that night, as the moon rose, she was filled with utmost grief, knowing that it was inevitable. The guards prepared themselves to defend, only to be stunned by what they saw. A bridge of fairy light, white and gleaming, crossing the sky and reaching down to the balcony. They could do or say nothing, nor could they see after that, as if they were turned to stone. Had they been able to see, they would see an army of celestials, donning glowing armor, moving down towards the balcony to meet with their princess, Kaguya. They had no breath, nor did they speak, but Kaguya understood what they intended for her. With the words, "I'm ready," she took a mantle of flowing white feathers upon her back and lowered her head. Then one of these soldiers presented a cup filled with the waters of forgetfulness to her. And with a drink, she lost all memory of the humanity she had come to love. Her father, her mother, they all faded away. As did her mortality. Just as suddenly as they appeared, the army and the princess vanished, heading back to their home on the moon. Some tellings explain that an elixir was left to the emperor to drink and become immortal. Instead, he dropped it upon the nearby tallest mountain in grief at the loss, making it an eternal mountain, Mount Fuji. While other tellings speak that the mists and smoke that arise from the mountain is in fact the remnants of that divine trail leading skyward to the home of Princess Kaguya, to the Moon City, a city of eternity and happiness. And that is the story of Kaguya-hime and the bamboo cutter. Until next time.